Welcome, everyone. Hi, my name is Jill Harani, and I'm the VP of Marketing at Metazoa. Welcome to the Metazoa Live, where we chat with influencers in the Salesforce ecosystem. This episode today is called Understanding Technical Debt on the Salesforce Platform, and we have Bill Appleton here to explain it all. There's a lot to say about Bill, but I'll just name a few things and then I'll let Bill introduce himself as well. Bill is the leading expert on authoring tools, API services, and smart client applications. He has designed and written approximately 3 dozen professional software publications, including the first rich media authoring tool, World Builder, in 1984, the groundbreaking multimedia programming language Supercard in 1989, the worldwide best-selling CD-ROM Titanic in 1996, the first App Exchange application Dream Team in 2005, the first serverless API platform in 2013, and Snapshot org management for Salesforce on the App Exchange in 2018. Welcome, Bill. So glad to have you here.
Hi, Jill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. I'm the CTO at Metazoa. And, I guess the Bureau of Labor Statistics says that the average person will have 5 different careers in their lifetime. But not me. I've written software my whole life, and I love to do it. I try to write 100 to 200,000 lines a year if I can.
Wow.
And that's it. I love to write software.
Well, that's incredible. It's kind of funny because as I'm reading that through, I'm like, wow, you must have started when you were 10.
Yeah, thank you.
So, hey, everyone, if you have questions, just please put them in the chat, whatever platform you're coming live from, and we'll try to get to them. And if we don't get to them during this session, we will try to get Bill to respond later. So, Bill, why don't you tell us how you got started with Salesforce?
Yeah, so around the turn of the century, I was working on rich client applications. And so this was at the very beginning of API services. And so everybody was thinking about how can servers supply API services, but I was thinking about how a client application can consume them. And you could build something, really cool at the client. And back then, there were services available, but they were things like, if I give you a highway number, you give me the traffic condition, or if I give you a zip code, you tell me the temperature there. And you really couldn't build a compelling application out of those services. And so I got attracted to Salesforce about 2002, 2003, because Salesforce had an orchestrated palette of API services that all kind of fit together. And you could build really cool things out of those services. And so I was one of the first people using the XML RPC API and then the SOAP API, and helping Salesforce also develop the API because I was really rigorously using these APIs. And then in 2005, Salesforce came out with App Exchange. And so I definitely loved to publish software, wanted to be involved in that, and built Dream Team, the first App Exchange application, a project management application. Some of you probably remember it, you old timers. And those were really fun days on the App Exchange because you could develop an application over the weekend and publish it on Monday, and it was there, and you'd have customers by Tuesday. And it's not that they weren't watching security. There were people watching the App Exchange, but there was no process yet, security review, any of that. It was just live. And so I published a lot of different things, but one thing we published because we needed it. And the problem was back then there were no packages. There were no managed packages, there were no unmanaged packages, there were no packages at all. And so our Dream Team application, hundreds of people were installing it, and it had to be implemented by hand in each person's org. They would have to give us a login. We'd have to go in there and create the objects in the fields so that Dream Team would run. And since this was a manual process, it was error prone. So I wrote this thing that would take a snapshot of one org and the schema and take the snapshot of another org in the schema, and then you could compare the orgs and see how they were different. Or you could compare the same org over time and see how it was changing. And we used that at first to verify the Dream Team installations, but then it dawned on me, man, this thing's really useful. And we published that on the App Exchange, and that was in 2006, and that was Snapshot. And then the metadata API came out, and all of a sudden we could not only compare the custom objects in the fields, but custom applications, custom tabs, workflows, all of the different Salesforce objects. And you could see how they changed over time in one org or see the differences between orgs. And then the next version of the metadata API had the ability to migrate these changes, to push the changes from one org to another org, or from a backup to production, or so on and so forth. And then Snapshot just took off, and it was the beginning of release management. And we built the first applications in that space, and it really allowed admins the ability to manage their org in a much more effective way as Salesforce was getting more and more complex. And so it's kind of a long-winded story, but that's how I got started with the App Exchange and the beginning of Snapshot.
That's cool. It's kind of neat to hear the timeline. You're definitely an expert. So, okay, we're with Metazoa now. So tell me how Metazoa got started.
So all of that stuff was with a company called Dream Factory, which had a successful exit and is doing great today. They're not on the Salesforce platform, but you can go check them out. They're doing some really great things. But we had an opportunity to get some of the core members of Dream Factory and also to buy the core technology and start Metazoa. And that's how we got started. It wasn't, there was also something we really needed to change. And that is that, release management has been copied now by so many other companies, right down to my UI. And it was really time to do something new and something that was really important. And we really saw a great opportunity in org management. And org management, I guess, is a new term that we've coined, but it's easy to understand. It's all the things you need to do to keep your org healthy and running properly. So it involves optimization and cleanup, compliance and security, and technical debt reduction. And actually, those three topics are almost all the same topic. It's being able to see what's in your org, see that it's secure, see that it's compliant, or see what needs to be changed, and identify problems and fix them. So we still have great release management tools and data migration tools, but it's all aimed at keeping your org healthy and running properly. And so that's what we're here to talk about today, which is technical debt.
Right. So, okay, so you obviously started, years and years ago on the App Exchange with Snapshot. How did customers play a role in fine-tuning Snapshot?
Yeah, so that's a really great question. When we started Metazoa, we knew so many people in the Salesforce ecosystem, and both in Salesforce and customers as well, and that was a really important issue that led us to come back, and because we wanted to. The best thing about the Salesforce platform is the customer ecosystem. They're really bright, they're really smart, and if you're publishing on-demand software, the way it works is, we put stuff out there, but then customers come back to us with their problems and improvements or things that they need or things that we're not doing as well as we could be doing. And there's a cycle that goes on between the customers and the engineering team. And it's customer driven innovation. So it's really, really important. And, most of our, the new directions that we're looking at to, solve challenges and problems are really things that people are bringing to us. If somebody has a really hard problem, we love to hear about that and try to address it.
Yeah. In fact, we had Andrew Montemare on from Exalta last time, and he actually talked at the end. He said one of my biggest recommendations to everybody listening is to get involved with that ecosystem because it is really a great ecosystem. Okay, so let's talk about what are customers dealing with right now? What's the biggest challenge that customers have?
Yeah. So, a lot of people start out with Salesforce and they start adding business requirements and customizations and they add more and more things to their org. And then, 5 years go by, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, and all of a sudden their org isn't running correctly. Things are not working very well. And the truth is, if your Salesforce org is getting more complex every day, eventually it will become unusable. And so that's really this issue of technical debt. And if you think about it, what should happen is you should add these customizations over time, but then at some point you need to start decommissioning. Over here, you need to start decommissioning things as you're building out new things. And that's really how your org should move forward. And so technical debt reduction needs to become, it can't just be an emergency that you're trying to fix, but ideally, it's part of the release cycle. It's part of the normal things you do to take care of your org. And what I've seen is that after 5 or 10 years go by, customers they have Salesforce has provided all kinds of tools to customize the org, to do clicks instead of code, to write Apex, and to build out all of these customizations and business requirements in the org. But there hasn't been as much attention on how to decommission that stuff to visualize the complexity and clean up that back end. So that's what org management's all about. And it's really a vital part of the application lifecycle of owning a Salesforce org, of keeping it working properly, of keeping the costs down, of maintaining it, and keeping it to be agile and taking care of all the business requirements that your company has.
Yeah. So what you want to talk to me a little bit about what the root cause is of technical debt?
Yeah, yeah. It's if you read what people write about technical debt, they talk a lot about the bad effects of it over here, and they talk a lot about how to prevent it over here. But that middle part about what it actually is almost always missing, and about the closest you can get. If you read the analysts like Forrester and these guys, they'll tell you something like this: that too many customizations cause complexity, which reduces org agility, which causes technical debt. It's something like that. You customize your org, and it caused technical debt, and it's something like that. But they really never get into specifics, and I think that's unfortunate because that argument that customizations cause technical debt is wrong, and it's it's misleading. It's got everyone looking in the wrong direction.
Hmm.
It's like old age. You're just going to get technical debt and you're going to die, or global warming or something. The difference is if you look at it carefully, technical debt is usually something specific that's wrong with the org and that can be fixed. So, and the whole thing that the orgs with technical debt have more customizations turns out to be wrong. If you statistically look at orgs by size and the number of customizations and the complaints of technical debt, what you find out is that orgs suffering from technical debt have fewer customizations.
Hmm.
And once you think about it, it makes total sense, because if that org is mired in technical debt, they're not adapting lightning. They're not moving to customer 360. They're having that org's dead in the water. Those customers are unhappy. They're worried about their Salesforce investment, and they're not going to be heavily customizing that org. You look at an org that has an active team of admins that are pushing that forward and adopting new products, customizing that org for business requirements. They're probably also reducing technical debt in the release cycle and managing that org. They have less technical debt and more customizations. So everything you've been told about technical debt is pretty much wrong. And it's taking us away from what we really need to be doing, which is looking for the specific problems in the org that can be fixed, that can reduce technical debt.
Yeah. Okay. Now we know how the problem exists. How do you fix it?
Well, so here's an analogy for you. It's like a healthcare analogy. So let's say that you go to the doctor and you get an MRI, and the doctor tells you your brain has a lot of connections, it's really complex. Then that doesn't sound like a problem. That sounds like a good thing. It sounds like you're really smart, you know. But let's say instead the doctor says your brain or your body has some organs that are of an abnormal size and your white blood cell count is way too high. Now, that sounds like a problem. And really, we found the same thing with Salesforce orgs, that there are specific systems in the org that have to remain healthy for the org to operate properly. And I just kind of want to talk about some of those different systems. So one really important system is profiles. So if you think about it, if you have 500 profiles and 1,000 custom objects and about 500 fields per object, that's 250 million field level security permissions. That's 250 million field level security permissions. And if you download them all, they're about 250 bytes each. That's about 60 gigabytes of data. That'll shut down most major tool chains. It'll shut down Salesforce DX. It'll shut down Workbench. There's just a whole bunch of stuff you can't do at that point with your profiles. But even if you just try to look at them, if you spend 5 seconds on each one, that's hundreds and hundreds of years of looking at all of the security permissions. So profile management is really important, and it's kind of a starting point. You need to be able to visualize all of your different profiles. You need to be able to bulk edit profiles to make changes. Snapshot has tools that will let you take two similar profiles and merge them and then kick out the differences as permission sets. And that is a fundamental way to reduce the number of profiles. We have tools for bulk editing profiles and for comparing them across orgs or over time. We have a bunch of corresponding issues are for permission sets. So if you think about it, a lot of the complexity has gone from the interior of the profile to the web of junction objects that connect permission sets and permission set groups to users. And so we have tools in Snapshot to bulk edit all of those different connections and to really use permission sets and permission set groups to manage permissions in a rational way where your permissions have meaning and you can look at them and tell that they're working properly without kind of relying on monolithic profiles with all of that information in one place. Another big issue is just unused assets. So we have a report called the Forgotten Assets Report, which will show you about 50 different metadata types that are unused, disconnected, not installed properly, not referenced by anything, and you can delete those. That's a starting point for real cleanup. We have a great custom field and pick list report that'll find unused pick lists and custom fields and let you edit their compliance information or actually delete them right there from your org, right from the report. That's another thing that reduces the size of profiles. We have other reports to find stale reports and dashboards and things like that. So huge amount of org cleanup capability is another important thing. Another good one is taking care of inactive users. So you can make a user inactive, but you never really delete them. And it turns out that an inactive user can remain connected to your Salesforce org in about 50 different ways. And so, some of it's insidious. I mean, their raw email address can be there receiving notifications long after the user's gone. So, the other problem is you can have an inactive user that's a manager for active users. That causes all kinds of problems. So, another thing you can do is you can see how all of your users are connected to the org, how the inactive users are connected to the org, and then delete those junction objects or replace those inactive users with some other a user, probably an administrator. Another important thing to take a look at is all your record level security. That's how, who's got access to what objects and why. And another issue there is the recalculation of record level security. I've seen customers that had tens of thousands of roles in their org, and then every time somebody changed a role, it would recalculate all the different record level security, and it would almost bring the org down. So, that's another system that really needs to remain healthy. I would say one of the most important ways to manage technical debt on an ongoing basis is to move to unpackaged applications. So to take all of, you have this vast sea of unpackaged objects in your org. Can you identify groups of those that you can package and then make them, either a Salesforce DX project or some other developer project? So then you can conduct agile development on them. You can install them by version. They're now separated, logically separated from all the other parts of your org. And so I think that's another just really important strategy is packaging older applications and so that you can deal with those in a more rational fashion. But those are some of, unfortunately, what's wrong with your org is usually not one thing. There's, it's kind of like human health again. There's various systems that can become unhealthy, and you need to address those and figure out, how to fix those things. And when you do, you can get rid of technical debt. We have a lot of customers that come to us with, and another thing we do at Metazoa is we do org mergers and org splits, which is a very difficult thing to do on the Salesforce platform. But a lot of times people come to us and they say, well, we need to clone this org. And we'll say, why? And it's, well, it has horrible technical debt. They say, well, we can clone the org, but let's go look at that org first and see if we can't just fix it. So, that's what I see out there. I think it's a big problem, and it's getting bigger. And, Metazoa has a turnkey solution that lets real admins address it. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about this stuff and not talk about Snapshot because it's such a comprehensive tool that really looks at everything. I know there's, little tools here and there that do some of this stuff, but I think it's really important to talk about Snapshot because it really does dig in deep and like we were talking about in our last episode, Andrew was talking about how they even considered, wiping out their org and starting over, and how important Snapshot became to them to be able to not do that and to actually clean everything up and reduce all this technical debt. So,
I really agree with that, Jill. And I think, Snapshot, unfortunately, it does do so much. It's kind of a monolithic product.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we've done is we're now spinning off individual parts of the product as free to try apps on the App Exchange that can help people, get into understanding these issues and taking care of them.
Yeah, kind of a baby stepping into the whole big picture. Okay, so there seems to be confusion out there, at least I know when I'm talking to people or I've read a lot of different articles, people will get confused with the difference between DevOps and org management. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that DevOps is happening. Having built the first API applications on the platform, it did take a while. But if you look at an enterprise org, you'll see that the developers are building, they might have 100 or 200 custom objects that they're building applications with, or whatever it is they've created. But there will be over 1,000 standard objects that are put there to run the Salesforce platform. And same deal with metadata API types, metadata types. There's about a dozen metadata types that developers like to use. Apex classes, custom objects, custom tabs, flows. All the kind of usual suspects. But there's 250 other metadata types that are in that org that are there again to run the Salesforce platform. So really, Salesforce and their product line, the CRM product and Service Cloud and all of the other products that they have, that's kind of the 800-pound gorilla in the org. And so DevOps is important and exciting, and it's kind of the icing on the cake. We're really focused on the cake. And so if that platform isn't working properly, DevOps is not going to work, and DevOps is going to fail. And if that platform's not, being maintained and healthy, then, where's that org headed? And so it's a fundamental complementary solution to working with DevOps, I think.
Mm-hmm. So you kind of hinted a little bit at some of the stuff we're doing with Snapshot, some of the new things. You want to talk about some other things, or maybe get into a little more detail on that stuff?
Yeah, sure. Let's see, one new thing that's out now is the impact analysis report. And what this will do is it will let you select any metadata asset, and it'll show you all of the things that reference it and all of the things that it depends on. And you can interactively browse through your org and see how everything's connected. You can even browse through the hierarchy of Apex classes that call each other, the calling hierarchy, and then see all of the assets that they reference at each step of the way. And you can then export all that as big, graphic images for engineering meetings or what have you. What it's especially good at is just explaining how your org is put together. And so that's a new feature that's shipping in Snapshot now. There's also a free version on the App Exchange. And what's interesting about it is this is the first time that all 250 different metadata types are all included in an impact analysis report. And all 1,230 relationships between these metadata types are there that you can browse between. And what I like about it is you can now kind of see all of Salesforce under one umbrella and how it's all related and connected. So impact analysis is cool, and it's really useful. So things that are on the drawing board right now, one thing is we're really looking at folder-based assets. So that's your reports, your dashboards, your documents, and your email templates. And they are hard to manage, and the shared folder setup is especially tricky and hard to comprehend. If you're trying to say what users have access to what reports under what circuit that were shared out to them, it's hard to calculate because groups are parts of other groups, and there's queues and roles, and they're hierarchical. And so that's another thing that we're going to definitely try to fix and make that so you can not only edit all your reports and dashboards and drag and drop and move them around and reorganize them, but then see really what users have access to what shared folders and why. And I forgot the last one.
I'm trying to think. I should know this stuff too. So converter to flows or
Oh yeah. So Salesforce is decommissioning process builder and workflow rules, and so that's going to be a big issue. You're going to have to convert. And the other issue is a lot of admins actually like workflows. So I think one thing we're looking at now is, how can we convert all of your workflows, rules, and process builder flows and can make those regular flows, and also let people who want to stick with workflows still use that user interface and save those as those flows as flows. And I think that would be something that'd be really, really transition. Uh, so that's another thing to look forward to.
Awesome. Um, so anything else? I know that, for people who are listening or watch the replay on this, Bill has written a really awesome technical debt ebook that we have on our homepage that you can download. And you've also done a blog and you've written a lot about this. I know people are interested in having you talk at user groups and stuff like that. So is it okay if people reach out to you if they have questions?
Yeah, please. It's Bill at Metazoa. I love to hear from people. Especially if speaking's great. What I really love is people who have hard problems they want to tell me about.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything that's keeping you up at night or taking hours or weeks of your time to finish, that's very interesting to me. So yeah, please reach out.
Excellent. All right. Well, that's all we have today on Metazoa Live. A big thank you, Bill, for being here and talking to us today. And stay tuned for new episodes that we're going to have added soon. We're going to have a little delay, but I have some great ones that are coming up. So stay tuned for those and check them out on our Metazoa Live page. And thanks for joining. See you next time. Bye.